did want to speak about Israel because that is on all of our hearts and minds and conscience every day, every hour of the day, minutes within the hour. So it's definitely something we keep coming back to because this is what's going on now in our world, in our life. I wanted to share one story. I had a few more I was going to share, and then I cut them all out. I'm like, I'm going to share this story. I just thought it brings up very much this point as we're processing what's going on and what happened. So this was on October 7th. This was a couple that went to the festival with tremendous number of miracles. They got out. Also, the husband's brother was at the festival and he also got out. So all three of these people know that the only way they got out of that festival alive is because of, again and again and again, in so many details of the day, the hand of God. And seemingly these people were very, very far from God. The man, you see in the video of them talking, the man is like covered with tattoos, but they experience in a very revealed way the hand of God. And they really took this to their hearts and they really transformed their lives. I saw this video of the two of them talking and the brother talking, all three of them talking about their experiences. I'm not going through their experiences, but there were so many multiple miracles that they survived. Now she's wearing a sheitel, she's covering her hair. They took on to keep the Shabbos. He took on to put on tefillin. They took on to do family purity. They get it. They survived. It makes no sense they survived. When you hear their story, which I'm not going into, it just makes no sense. The truth is, it makes no sense how anyone survived from those areas where the terrorists targeted. And any survivor story you hear is just replete with hand of God, hand of God, hand of God. But they recognize this. And now these people are clinging to God in gratitude for their lives, in gratitude that they'll be raising their small girls that they have, that those girls won't be orphaned, and they want the relationship. And when you listen to this story and many other stories, many people that did survive are sharing their stories, and when you listen to the stories, every detail is so intense in who lived, who was taken hostage, who died, who was brutalized. It's detail by detail. Just giving one example, the brother, he was in the festival, he's trying to get out, and a car goes by. I don't remember if this was people knew him or didn't know him, but they said, come in. They're all running away. And for some reason, he said, no. He didn't go with the car. He doesn't know why. It was what everyone was doing, running away. And he just like sort of dropped to the ground and tried to look for a place for cover. And he was hiding. And more people, many people ran away. And many people couldn't run away. They didn't have cars. They didn't have access. And they were hiding. And then another car drove by, maybe an hour or two later, maybe a few hours later. And again, stopped, saw a number of people hiding, offered them a ride, and he went into the car this time. Why he didn't go in before, he doesn't know. Why he went in this time, he doesn't know. As they were driving out of the festival, they were passing this most horrific sight. Because all those people that ran away from the festival, it was all a trap. Whoever ran away, they ran into the terrorists that were already waiting for them on the road, that were waiting to burn their cars, to blow them up, to blow out the tires, shoot bullets in the cars. And as he's going with his car, he passes the car that had offered him a ride a few hours earlier, totally smashed up. There were 5 people in the car. 4 of them got killed. Somehow one of them survived. He should have been in that car. For some reason, he refused the ride. He doesn't know why. And he took this ride. Didn't know why I took this one. And thank God they did somehow. And again, how doesn't even make any sense, because the terrorists were all there waiting for cars, and somehow they survived. Somehow that car got through all these terrorists and survived. And also the couple, as they're telling their story, there were so many decisions they made, life and death decisions. They had a feeling, go here. They have a feeling, don't go there. And somehow directed by this feeling, they survived. Just amazing. We see, like in the flesh, miracles, and people that are recognizing the miracles. Not only are recognizing the miracles, but are turning over their lives because of the miracle. And for sure, far more than the miracles we know, and we're hearing so many, are the miracles we don't know. Like we said, by the Gulf War, where the Lubavitcher Rebbe said at the end of the Gulf War, that far more than the miracles we know are even greater miracles that were classified information that we don't know. And just recently, when those miracles came out, when that information became declassified, and we heard that there were planes loaded with biological and chemical warheads with the direction, anything happens, go to Israel and drop your payload, go to Israel and drop this on the land, drop all these chemical warheads, drop all these biological warheads, and they never dropped. And somehow right before the war ended, Saddam Hussein said, no, change of plans, unload the plane. We're not shooting down this payload. Why? We don't know, because there's a God and there's miracles. So I'm saying similarly, just as then, more than the miracles we knew were the miracles we didn't know, I really believe now. Some we missed, we didn't hear, some maybe no one knows, and some it's just God's. The verse says in Psalms, La'oise niflaos gedolos levado, which means to the one who makes wondrous miracles alone. Alone. Only God makes these wondrous miracles. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, explains that verse from Psalms, La'oise niflaos gedolos, who makes wondrous wonders, great, magnificent, fabulous wonders, levado, alone. Only he knows of, alone. So many miracles and wonders that God does for us every single day are alone. We don't know about them. The people involved don't know about them. No one knows the miracle, just God. Surely now in this critical time, there's so many miracles that just God knows about. So it's always good to reassess what we are doing to create these miracles, as we've been trying to reassess, trying to remind ourselves. And it's hard sometimes to stay focused, not because we're not thinking about it all the time, but because life also gets in the way. Really important is joy, trust, and confidence, which sometimes nowadays with some of the news we hear is a little difficult. But we have to cling to joy, cling to trust, cling to confidence. Why is joy so powerful? Joy is the behavioral expression of trust. Joy is the behavioral expression of confidence. Joy means all is good, all is amazing. Well, maybe it doesn't look so amazing, but I know it's God. I know He's amazing. So I know this is also amazing. When I have that trust, I have that joy. So that joy is really expressing the enormous trust and belief we have in God. And as per the trust, that's the degree of joy. If my trust is wavering, my joy is gone. And what do I do if my trust is wavering? I rethink the basics. Everything is God. There is only God. There is nothing but God. Everything that happens, no matter what decisions men make, it's all ultimately God's world, and God's running the show, and God loves every Jew absolutely. It's all God. It's all going to be revealed good. That is what we think about and remind ourselves until we really feel that trust. And when we really feel the trust, we feel the joy. Now, it's very interesting, I was thinking, because what I just said, these ideas I just said, there's about 10 of us on tonight. 10 people, regular Jewish women. And we know this idea. I didn't say any innovative thought just now. Everything I said, everyone on here could have said the exact same thing. I get the mic, but anyone could have said it. We all know this. You know what? Go back 225 years ago. Almost no one knew what I just said. High majority of Jews, very devout, very pious, did not know what I just said. For us, this is such natural thinking because this is Hasidic thought. This is how Hasidus has taught us to look at the world, to look at ourselves, to look at God. Hasidic thought began to flood the world in 1798. On the 19th of Kislev, when the first leader of Chabad, whose work the time that we studied, when the Alter Rebbe was released from his Tsarist imprisonment, where there was a death threat over his head. This coming Shabbos is the 19th of Kislev. Now it's Monday night, Saturday, Shabbos is again the 19th of Kislev. So this energy, we know, as we've spoken many times, how the Jewish calendar is cyclical, And when we come to a date, the same energy is released in the world. So we are now, it's Monday night. Saturday is going to be the 19th of Kislev. We are approaching that energy of Hasidus. Once again, the world is going to be washed with this energy. What happened then that changed the world? So a little bit of the backstory. I said this was in 1798. 2 years before, in 1796, the Tanya, the seminal work of Chabad Hasidic philosophy, the seminal work of the Alter Rebbe, the leader, the first leader of the Chabad movement, was printed. A work so groundbreaking because it explains mystical secrets of godliness in a very rational way. How God works, how we work spiritually, makes sense. And the more we study this work, the Tanya, the more it makes sense. The more we get rationally God, mysticism, spirituality. That was in 1796. 2 years later, as a spiritual response to that, the author of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, was arrested and they wanted to take away his life. He sat in prison, horrific czarist prison, for 53 days. There were 53 chapters in the Tanya. He sat in prison for 53 days. He had to pay 1 day for each chapter he wrote. How do we know why he was in prison? Because when he was in prison, he was visited by illustrious souls from the next world, by his spiritual mentor, the previous leader of the Hasidic movement, who's referred to as the Maggid of Mezrich, and by his spiritual grandfather, the leader before the Maggid of Mezrich, the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov and his successor, the Maggid of Mezrich, come into the cell of the Alter Rebbe. They actually came not just as like amorphous spiritual energies, they came engarbed in physical bodies to really be within the physicality of the world. And they start talking to him. And he says, why am I here? Like, what did I do wrong? Why am I in prison? And they said, well, you're in prison for taking God's secrets and putting them out there and making it rational. You took the most mystical secrets of God and you put it there that anybody can understand it. That was the big crime that in heaven they're judging you over. And they're deciding in heaven, guilty or innocent. He said, so if it was such a big crime, God willing, if I'm vindicated and I leave, should I stop? Like what I did was really wrong. And that's why I'm sitting in prison for 53 days with this threat of death. And in heaven, it's really not men at work. It's really heaven at work. And heaven is judging if I'm guilty or innocent. So I did something so bad. Should I stop? And they said, no. When you get out, do it even more. What the Alter Rebbe did was taking an enormous jump forward from what had begun 2 generations before with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, started expounding on the secrets of God to everyone, not to this elite circle of the highest and holiest, but to man, to the Jewish people, to revive the spirits of the Jews that were totally destroyed by Chmielnicki and what happened in those years. His successor, the Maggid of Mezrich, continued and did it more. But the Alter Rebbe went way beyond them, because the Alter Rebbe presented in the Tanya like almost a systematic, rational, anyone can pick this up and study it and understand these secrets. That was such a breakthrough that we literally had to judge him in court of heaven, guilty, innocent, death, life, stop, continue. So they're saying, if you get out, when you get out, when you are vindicated, when you win, you won. Well, if you won, do it even more. This is it. This is what the world needs. Share with them the secrets of God. And that's what happened, because he did get out after 53 days. And after his release, his Hasidus changed. It became so much more open, so much more extensive, so much more elaborate. And from generation to generation, there was the Alter Rebbe. We're now 7 generations from the Alter Rebbe. Every generation, more and more and more. And that's why when we look back at the 19th of Kislev, which is going to be this Saturday, this Shabbos, we call it the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus. So when I'm looking at what's going on right now in our world, in a very practical level, so many times I could get worried or much, much worse than worried. And when I feel that happening, I go back to Hasidus. I go back to the basics that we all know because we've discussed them so many times in this class. Foundational ideas that 225 years ago, almost no one knew, but now we all know. All is God. There's only God. There is nothing but God. Everything that's happening is God. Those basic ideas, the most foundational concepts in all of Hasidus, most foundational concepts that transform the world. And I just keep repeating that. It's all God. There is nothing God. There's nothing but God. There is only God. Whatever happens is God. God is taking care. God is running his world. All will be fine. Whatever choices man makes, whatever wrong man does, God runs the world. Whatever happens that gives me stress, God runs the world. And I have to look at that thing that is evoking a lot of things inside of me and say, this too is part of God's world. This too is part of God's world. This too is only God. This too is God's hand. This too will be fine. And I keep telling myself that until I'm calm and certain. Whatever decisions people make, it will be good. It's all God. There's nothing but God. God loves every Jew infinitely. As the Baal Shem Tov taught us, the founder of Hasidus, as a parent loves a child they waited their entire life for. Parent waits and waits, and finally at the end of his life is blessed with a child. That's each one of us for God. That's God's infinite love for us. Whatever happens, we trust that love. So this idea, this central idea that we're saying here, the joy, the trust, the confidence, which is, I think, in a sense, the core of everything we're doing. This is all flowing from these ideas of Hasidus that some of us have absorbed now for like 11 years. We've studied them, we've discussed them, we've returned to them and returned to them and revisited them and deeper and deeper and deeper. So hopefully all of us have the ability to access the joy, the confidence, the trust, no matter what we see. And a lot of times it's better not to look and not to read. I haven't found anything in the news that gives me any positivity. So I really should avoid it completely. But whatever it is, I'm like, okay, God, this is your world. What we want to focus on as well, of course, as we all know, is Psalms, is charity, getting men to put on tefillin, getting women to light the candles of the Shabbos, mezuzah, checking your mezuzahs, getting other people to have mezuzahs, making sure everyone you know has a letter in a Torah scroll to create protection. Anyone you know in Israel, getting them a letter in a Torah scroll for protection. These are the things that we keep on reminding ourselves because these are really powerful tools that create salvation. Also, people are individually doing things that are very meaningful to them, meaning the broad strokes, the most foundational thing is trust and confidence, which is expressed in that joy. And then the details of the commandments, there's the Psalms and the charity and the tefillin and the Shabbos candles and the mezuzah and the Sefer Torah. Those are for all of us. All of us. All of us and any Jew you know, those are the basic tools in our arsenal. But then there's also very individual things, and people have been putting out videos of things that people are choosing to do individually that's very, very difficult for them. And they're doing these very difficult things because they know what's so difficult for us is so, so, so significant to God. And if we want to thank God in a major way, or evoke God's compassion, evoke God's miracles in a major way, we have to give to him majorly. So I saw videos of people cutting up immodest clothing of all ages. we think immodest. Oh, young girls. No. Women in their 50s cutting up immodest clothing. They're giving that to God. I personally know some women that started covering their hair. That was very challenging for them before, and they just were very challenged. And they know it's very big, very important. They were very challenged, so they're giving God a big sacrifice. Some people are looking for a big sacrifice because they know God works measure for measure. As we sacrifice big time for us, going beyond for us, our norm and our reason, this allows God to go beyond norm and reason. This allows God to show his love and protection for us in a supernatural way. This is the theme we keep talking about. Our additional efforts create miracles. We've been talking about this for over 50 days now. Why is this true? How do we create miracles? Miracles are an expression of God's love for us. Now, God has, as we just said, infinite, absolute love for each one of us, right? We said, the Baal Shem Tov said, God loves each Jew like a parent that waited his entire life for a child. Each one of us is that child. God has infinite love for us. What we are doing is not to create God's love. God's love is beyond anything we can fathom. But what we do allows that love to be expressed. And when that love is expressed, as we perceive it, we call it a miracle. Meaning, God does things for us all day long. The whole cycle of nature is God's love for us. So many details that make our life function is God's love for us. But we don't notice him. So therefore, we don't feel the embrace. We don't feel the hug. We don't feel God's kiss. That God makes the sun and the moon and the planets and water and air and all the details in my life happen. I don't feel love. That's natural. That's normal. So if I'm showing God love, God has to and wants to, in response, show me love as I perceive love. Just like if you were getting a present for someone, you don't think, what would I really like? Okay, that's what I'm going to give, this person. You have to think what they appreciate. So God can't say, well, I'm giving you love all day long. True, you are. But we take it for granted. Just like a child, a mother gives to their child all day long. But the child doesn't perceive that as love. That's like, your obligation. You're my parent. So if the parent wants to show love, they have to do something beyond norm. Because any norm, which is all love, you're making supper and you're cleaning up and you're taking the kid here and you're taking the kid there and you're buying the kids their clothing and their shoes and you're all the stuff we do for our children all day long. That's normal. Like, hey, you're my mother, you're my father. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what I expect. So for the child to feel love, we have to do more. We have to do beyond. We have to do different. We have to do something unexpected. So God has so much love for us. God has so much desire to give us, and he's giving us all day long. But for us to perceive it, he has to go beyond the norm, beyond as we understand the laws of nature. Now, God always wants to go beyond the norm. God always wants to give us beyond nature. But according to the law book, his law book, he works within nature. Except when we give him more and more, expressive of our intense love for him. And when we express our intense love for God, this frees him to express his love for us. And that expression is what we call a miracle. So that's why our doing and doing and doing creates the miracles that God is showering on us. Now, it's very fascinating, this concept. It's very significant, this concept, because it's actually how we're going to progress in the times of redemption, in the times of Mashiach. Meaning, traditionally, Mashiach redemption has two broad stages. Now, there are many, many stages in redemption. But broadly speaking, we have two stages. The first stage is what's called the natural stage. A great world, no oppression from anyone, nothing inhibiting our keeping Torah mitzvos, our serving God, completely good world, prosperous, healthy, long life, great world, nothing bad. We'll be free to serve God completely without any oppression. A really best we can envision a world to be. But then there's another stage of Mashiach, which is a fantastic world, which is a world where things are not natural, like the wolves lying with the lambs, like barren trees being fruitful, like all the prophecies that describe a world that's not our world. That's a supernatural world. So precisely, how are we going to transfer from stage one, beautiful, perfect, natural, good, no oppression, only positivity world, like the best you can imagine, like now, if life was the best, utopia within the natural order? How does that move to a miraculous reality? How it moves is exactly the dynamics we're talking about right now. Because what's going to happen when we have the stage one of redemption? We're going to be serving God. That's all we'll want to do. And we'll have no impediments. We'll have no hindrances. The whole world's only going to want to do that. Every single Jew's going to want to do that. Every single non-Jew's going to want to do that. 8 billion people are going to be doing that. And we're going to serve God beautifully, perfectly. Our love for God will be so clearly expressed, and we know the service of God is how we gift him with his love. So we're all going to be serving God so beautifully, expressing our love for God more and more and more, until God, like, so to speak, can't hold himself back. And God is just allowed to do what he wants to do. He can shower us with his love for us, which means the miracles of redemption, stage 2. He can shift us from a natural reality to a supernatural reality, because what we do enables him to create the miracles of Mashiach, stage 2. Exact same dynamics as we're talking about right now, and we've been talking about week after week after week. This is the exact same dynamics of what will be by redemption. Our perfect, beautiful service will enable God to express his love. That was our love, our service. This is his love. The miracles, which at that point means the miracles of all the messianic promises, the promises and all the prophets of redemptions that we will experience because of how much we love God and show him our love by serving him. So we can do it now. Not only in connection to Israel, we can do it in our own personal life. As we give to God, expressive of our love for him, he can respond with the miracles in our personal life. As we give to God, expressive of our love for him, for Israel, he can respond with the miracles we're going to see in Israel. And as we give to God in the times of redemption, expressive of our love for him, he will give to us. He will give to the whole world, and he will shift us to the second stage, the supernatural stage in the eras of redemption. So we really mean this all very practically. What we're doing makes a difference. What we're doing creates miracles. We've been saying, again, week after week, we are the spiritual brigades. We are in the army. We are doing. And people here are saying psalms, getting people to put on tefillin, getting people to put up mezuzahs, giving charity. People here are doing so much, and we're literally creating miracles. We are literally creating salvation. I heard a vignette recently that I thought really brought this point out very strongly. A Vishnitzer Chassid, meaning a person from a Hasidic group that wears certain Hasidic garments. They don't look like, the regular people, religious people you would see, looking more like from Europe 200 years ago. So this Vishnitzer Chassid, a youngish man, he was in the hospital. He needed something. And as he's waiting in the waiting room, he was sitting next to a soldier who was wounded in the war. And they're both waiting. And the soldier starting up with him. The soldier's looking at him and he's getting irritated. Here he is, a wounded soldier. And he looks around and is obviously sitting comfortably in wherever he is in Israel, some frum enclave, some religious place, doing his regular life. He doesn't have any problem. And he started speaking to him a little harshly. And he's like, you know what is this? Why are you fighting? You're not too old. I'm fighting. I got wounded fighting. Why aren't you fighting? And the Vizhnitzer Chassid responded, no, I'm also in the war. I'm in, as we would call it, the spiritual brigades. I'm adding in my prayer and my Torah study and my Psalms, and all of this is to create salvation. I'm the spiritual force to protect the army. And the guy's like, come on, like, please. He's like, no, I mean it very sincerely. Like, seriously, everyone, me and all my friends, we all took on ourselves one soldier, that everything we're doing is to protect that soldier. We are the spiritual core of the army. So I said, really? Like, he's like, yeah, look, I'll tell you, and whatever. He rattled off the name of whatever soldier he was protecting. And the soldier was like, oh my gosh, that's my name. And it was a very intense moment when they've had this feeling of like, oh my gosh, everything you're doing is for me. Very intense. I had actually this feeling, not exactly the same, of course, but Saturday night when I was looking at the list of the hostages that were released. So one of them was a girl that I've been praying for every day. I recognize the name, of course, because every day I've been praying for her, I've been giving charity for her, I've been praying for her every single day. And she was released. And it was very unusual. She was released. Her mother wasn't released, but she was released. And I had such a sense of like, oh my gosh, this is the product of my prayers. No, this is someone I'm praying for every single day. This is a product of my prayers. So the two of them looked at each other. It was like, oh my gosh, you really. But remember, the soldier was wounded. So the chassid, the religious man, said to the soldier, now that they had this connection, tell me, like, what happened? How'd you get wounded? What happened? And he told him the story. I don't know the story. I'm not going to make it up. He told him what happened. He said, oh, wow, like, when did this happen? He told him. Whoa, what time of day did this happen? He told him 7:00 in the evening. And when the chassid heard this, he got all pale. And he said, that day, 7:00 in the evening, I was supposed to be learning Torah. I'm in a part of a kollel, part of a yeshiva system for married men. I was supposed to be sitting then and learning Torah and protecting you. And I was late that day. And that day at 7:00, I wasn't sitting and learning Torah. And that's when you got hurt. Very powerful. We don't usually hear the backstory. But for salvation or for a lack of protection, it is literally what we are creating by our psalms, by our charity, by our prayer, by the mezuzahs, by the tefillin, by the Shabbos candles, by any extra self-sacrificing that we do, that we get anyone else to do. It's a very literal thing. It's not a nice words we say to make ourselves feel like we're doing something. It's a very, very, very literal truth. It's that real. And I think that's one piece we're seeing very strongly all over the world. And I think what we're also seeing concurrently is really the core of so many Jews coming out in such an unbelievable way. I saw a few things. I'm not going to share, of course, everything I saw, and maybe everything I saw everyone else saw, or maybe not. But these are things that really moved me and really made me feel this sense of like the core is coming out. So one thing I saw that I really felt this in very strongly, I saw a man, Israeli, did not look religious. He's the father and husband of a hostage, and he was speaking in the European Parliament. He spoke well, he spoke in English. And after he finishes his, as I'll call it, his rational, strong words to the European Parliament, how does he conclude his speech? I mean, he's done. He concluded his speech. He wasn't done. He stood up, covered his hands over his eyes. Again, this does not look religious. And he recited the verse of Shema, that most foundational verse, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. He recited it very, very, very powerful. He didn't explain to them why he did it. I don't know if they understood why he did it. I don't know if he understood why. But what I processed watching this is he's saying, for all my nice English, for all my smooth words, in the end of the day, the most important thing is we are Jews. That's our strength. That's more important than anything else. More important than anything I'm going to convince you of or not convince you of. We are Jews. We have God. That's what counts. That's what I felt very strongly from seeing his Shema. A different note, but also I felt it very strongly as a father of one of the hostages. His son is hostage. His son is 24 years old. He was at the festival. Yosef Ohana. This father lives in Israel. He came to Brooklyn. He came to 770 to the shul, synagogue, study hall of Lubavitcher Rebbe, to create a massive party, a massive celebration, thanking God for his son's imminent release. And when I saw the videos, there's a lot of young men there singing, dancing, real joy, lots of food, drinking. You'd be like, whoa, this is such a cool party. What's happened? It's not what happened. It's what we know is going to happen because of our joy. And again, it was so tangible. It wasn't fake. It was real. It was joy. It was like, this creates reality. It shows you one other thing that also is along these same lines. These might seem separate, but to me, they're all the same issue. I saw a video, which I guess you haven't seen because I doubt this is translated to English, but it was a father, the father and mother. I mean, the father was talking with his father and mother, whose son was at the festival. In many, many, many details to the story. I'm not going to give over the whole story because I just want to, I'm coming to this point. Many, many details. Many, many miracles. And basically, they're in communication with their son, with the phone lines were and weren't working, depending on various points, and somehow the son escaped the festival, and then he's in some area, and then the terrorists come to that area, whatever. It's long story. And at a certain point, the father, they couldn't even speak to their son anymore. They're speaking to some other friend of his that was with him. Is like a tough guy. I mean, not like in a negative way, but like, strong guy, very self-sufficient. They're in their 20s. And the father says to this guy, do you want us to come down? And there was like a pause. And the man said, yeah. Like, whoa. Well, this is it. Like, they understand what's going on if they're saying to come down. So he and his wife jump in their Jeep, jump in their car. They're in Tel Aviv, race down, trying to find what area their son is in. They get to the area. And they're trying to find their son. And I mean, it's not like, it's not like streets, he's trying to give them landmarks and they're saying, oh, are you here? No, I'm here. And they're like sort of wandering in their car, trying to find their son. And suddenly they come like right in front of 12 armed terrorists. Like he said, like 5 meters away, 12 terrorists and their car. And somehow the terrorists just let them go. It's just one of the many, many, many miracles. They get to their son. He's with 5 of his friends. They all get in the car. They get out of this area. Do not encounter those 12 terrorists. So they went the same way. That was the road, but somehow the terrorists were not even there. And now they're on the main road. Now, where are they going to go? This is not really the point I want to say, but it's so precious and beautiful. I'm going to share it anyway because it made such an impression on me. Well, they have their son and they have 5 of his friends. So there's 6 young men. 5 of them, like the parents, just want to get out of there, which means let's go straight north back to Tel Aviv. One of them was from the army. He was in an army base. He had to go back to base. Well, the base was nearer to Gaza than they were. They're like, what? We should go back? We have like, the road is forking. We go to Tel Aviv. We go back to Gaza. Like, how can we? And they're like looking at him, they're thinking, what are we going to do? Are we going to tell him like, okay, go hitchhike? We're going to put you off on the road in these conditions when the people driving by are all terrorists? But we're going to go to this place where there's like every foot we're going to drive is going to be more and more terrorists. But what are we supposed to do with him? We can't abandon him. So they make this very deep, pivotal decision that they're going to drive him back to his army base, which was a terrifying decision, which was, people would tell you, a suicidal decision. They get to the army base and they drop him off on the base. They're now going to turn around and race back to Tel Aviv. And the commander's like, wait, where are you going? And they're like, well, now we want to get out of here. I mean, you're in the army. We're not. We want to get back home. We want to get to Tel Aviv as fast as possible. He's like, no way. If you go on that main road, that will be for sure death. And he was the commander of the army base. He saw what was happening. He was carrying the reports all day long. I'm like, no. Anyone that goes on that main road, they are done. That road is booby trapped with terrorists waiting for cars to flee. Everyone that's fleeing that road, they're all getting shot. We got to get out of here. He's fine. And he sketched out for them a series of back roads they should take based on his information. They followed his map precisely, and they made it back to Tel Aviv alive. That's just sort of parenthetical to the point I want to bring out, but I think it's so powerful that when they were like self-sacrificing beyond all the other self-sacrifice to go down into that area to rescue their son, and they made that unbelievable self-sacrifice decision of taking the soldier back to the army base instead of like leaving him, which of course was impossible, but like how do you go back to an army base closer to Gaza? And they say, if we had made a different decision, we probably wouldn't be here talking. This is not why I'm saying the story. I'm skipping many of the miracles that happened. That's not why I'm saying the story. This man is talking to a group of people. The man, the son's there, the wife's there. They're talking at some event, some evening. And he's talking. He said, actually, until now, he never told his story because they don't want to make other parents feel bad. I mean, when they heard what happened, they jumped in their car and they, drove down and rescued their son and 5 of his friends. And, they don't want to make anyone feel bad if their child's story had a different ending. But as he's saying his whole story, as he's talking about his story, he keeps repeating this point of like, I'm secular. Keeps repeating it throughout the story as he's saying miracle after miracle after miracle, which he said, which is clearly miracle after miracle. I'm secular, but this crazy miracle happened. I'm secular, but this crazy miracle happened. When he finishes his whole story, he stands up and he proclaims to the group 3 times so powerfully from his whole being a verse. Hashem Melech, Hashem Melech, Hashem Yimloch L'olam Va'ed. God was king. God is king. God will be king forever. It was so strong. His message of, I believe, I accept. I know I'm alive. I know my wife is alive. I know my son is alive. I know 5 of my son's friends are alive because of God. I think that point with this man, again, seemingly not religious, proclaiming the Shema, like just burst out of him that Shema from the European Union. This man coming to 770 to make this feast. Yes, God, we trust, we know. This man here, self-proclaimed secular, who was saying, and he said before he said, I never thought in my life I would ever do something like this. Cannot believe I am doing this. But it was just like, this is what he's feeling. This is what he's experiencing. This is what Jewish people are experiencing. And this is something we got to hold on to. This is something we have to treasure. This is something we have to rejoice in. This is something we have to say, okay, God, look at your children. Look at your precious children. Look at how much they're believing in you. Look at how much they're loving you. Look at how they're waking up. It's amazing. A very close friend of mine, her husband runs the Chicago Mitzvah Campaign, the CMC organization I'm sure many of you are familiar with. In honor of what's going on in Israel, the CMC made this beautiful campaign that they said that anyone who does not put on tefillin, the phylacteries, if they commit to putting on tefillin every day, CMC will sponsor 50% of their tefillin cost. So people are calling them, are signing up. They're purchasing a pair of tefillin, which is expensive purchase, and 50% of the cost CMC covers, 50% the person pays for. And then each person that does so gets a name of a soldier and gets the phone number of the soldier's parent. And the man who purchased this tefillin with 50% CMC's purchase and is now putting on the tefillin every day is to protect that specific soldier. And the man calls up the parents of the soldier to say, I want you to know I'm a Jew from Chicago, and I got a pair of tefillin to put on every day to protect your son. Very, very personal, very, very powerful. So I was talking to my friend whose husband runs a CMC, and she was telling me how it's unbelievable the people that are calling for this. Now, obviously, they're not religious. A religious person, gets tefillin when they're 13 years old. Not only are they not religious, so many of them have no Jewish affiliation at all. Some of them are so far from anything connected to Judaism, they're wondering, the people at CMC are wondering, how did this guy hear about it? How did they, like, what was he Googling and searching and finding that he even heard about this campaign we're doing? That's how far some of these people are that are calling them. But the commonality is every single person that calls, every single person that pays 50% of a pair of tefillin and commits to putting it on every day and commits that they're doing it for the soldier and commits that they're going to call the soldier's parents to tell them this good news. Every single one of them is feeling, I remember now that I'm Jewish. I want to do something to help. I want to do something to connect to my Judaism. If this is why they hate us so much, I want to do something that expresses I'm a Jew. I want to do something to protect a soldier in Israel. So it's real. It's so real that literally today in Chicago, these people coming out of the closet, so to speak, finding this, hearing about it, committing, doing it, and committing to do it, which means doing it every single day to protect their soldier in Israel. So God, you've got wonderful people. You got wonderful children that are doing so much, that are remembering you, that are loving you, that are doing so much for you. And that should be enough to create the salvation and the miracles that we want, need, and must see. So I managed to